Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited to talk to my guest today because he is going to be discussing several things that I think everyone will find very interesting. So please join me in welcoming Rick Yvanovich to our program today. Welcome, Rick. How are you?
I'm great, and thanks for having me, Deb. Now,
Great.
before we start,
Yes.
I like to quickly share a core belief that I
Okay.
hold very dear,
Perfect.
and that is that we all have the potential to be what I call architects of change. In this era that we're all living in, which is really defined by constant transformation, our task isn't just to keep up, but to actively shape the path forward.
Right.
So from stacking shelves and learning the ropes of people management as a trainee in a UK supermarket, to then immersing myself in the more precise world of accounting, and later navigating the constantly evolving landscapes of tech and humans. My story demonstrates the power of transformation and continuous learning and the significant impact each one of us can make. Every day, I believe that our actions, whether they're big or small, they help shape our future. And as we discuss stuff today, Deb, I want everybody listening to remember this. You are your brand, and every single decision that you make is part of the unique story you're crafting for you.
I love it.
How you react, how you adapt, and how you innovate in the face of all of this change that's happening is defining your story and your legacy.
Right.
So as we dive into our conversation today, let's just not think about adapting to change, but about how we can define it. And be a catalyst in our ever-changing business as unusual world. So let's get started, Deb.
Yes, most definitely. Well, as you can tell, Rick is a true master of the business coaching craft. His proven track record of helping companies and individuals achieve unprecedented levels of success is a testament to his unparalleled ability to combine business experience with coaching interventions. Through systematic processes and unwavering commitment to employee empowerment, I love that, Rick translates vision into actionable steps that propel his clients forward toward their goals and milestones. He is the founder and CEO of TRG International. And as I said, we're going to have such a great discussion today. So, first of all, you can probably tell for those of you who are watching and listening, we've got a Brit who we're talking to, but he lives in Switzerland. So for those of you who are watching this, you can see his skis there in the background. I'm a Colorado girl that has been, transplanted into Georgia. And so I miss the skis, right? But, I want to hear more about how it is that you made this journey, because your company is based in Vietnam. One of your companies, you have several that you're working with. So tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today.
Ooh, that's a long question. Well, as I mentioned before, my first job was stacking shelves in a supermarket. As a management trainee. I didn't quite make the grade to get into university. You said I sort of flunked. And so I got a job in the local supermarket as a management trainee. Interesting. But I'm actually a numbers person. And I really don't know why, and I don't know what happened, and I don't know when. But suddenly, whilst I was stacking a shelf,
Mhm.
I decided I wanted to become an accountant.
That's a switch.
So I am a career accountant. I've been an accountant, for decades.
Mhm.
Um, but I really, really don't know what motivated me. But never mind. It's what I started doing. So I switched to that, went back to accounting school, then started doing accounting jobs and worked my way
Mhm.
up the ladder. In what was it, 1990, the oil company I was working for moved me to China. That
Mm.
was just after Tiananmen
Wow.
Square, and that was
Mhm.
very interesting.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I liked the place. I thought I was going to stay there, and I was
Mhm.
offered a job to stay there as the
Mhm.
finance manager, CFO, call it what you want.
Mhm.
But then the next thing I heard is they wanted me to pop down to Vietnam.
Mm.
And when I arrived, I was basically told, "Oh, welcome to your new posting," because basically it was an interview that I didn't know about.
Ah.
Uh,
Mhm.
so I reluctantly went to Vietnam,
Mhm.
and that was in, I think May, June of 1990.
Mhm.
And I've pretty much been there for, 35 years,
Mhm.
until I relocated back here to Switzerland last
Mhm.
year. So that's what moved me around
Mhm.
those countries. So it's a long time in Vietnam, helped set up that oil company and get things going.
Mhm.
Saw the growth of the country.
Mhm.
Did a couple of stints living in Switzerland,
Mhm.
also living in Singapore, traveling around the world.
Mhm.
When I was going to be sent back, I think it was 94, I was going to be sent back to London.
Mhm.
Um, and I took a voluntary redundancy package and retired.
You said
Um,
no.
I said, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And but I'm a workaholic, so that didn't go very well.
Mhm.
I'm still working.
Mhm.
And one thing led to another,
Mhm.
started the company that I do,
Mhm.
which ingeniously implements accounting systems. Uh,
Big
and we
surprise.
do, big surprise, woo. And we do that in about 80 countries around the world.
Okay.
And we've just got bigger and bigger.
Right. Because accounting principles are universal. I mean, there's
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah,
obviously
yeah.
with different governments and tax systems and
Mm,
things like that, there's
mhm,
changes, but 1 plus 1 equals 2 everywhere. Not always in my brain, but it
mm,
should,
mm, mm,
and so but I love that you have such a diverse background in working with all these countries, because I, especially now, I think we have truly discovered, and I don't know, maybe this it was coming. I don't know if COVID sped it up, where all of a sudden things changed, but our audience, our market is worldwide, and what is it like though? Because years ago, I taught a class at Metro State University in Denver. And we talked about dealing with different cultures. And, because what works in the States might not work in Vietnam and might not work in Switzerland. So, how do you kind of incorporate all of that?
It's a good question.
Again, one plus
Um,
one equals two. So that does help. But,
yeah, the I said the good thing about being an accountant is, the debits are always by the door and the credits are by the window, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Um, it's always been like that, and it doesn't
mhm,
really matter what country I go
mhm,
to, the terminology is the same.
mhm,
Debit's still a debit, credit's still a credit,
mhm,
P&L still a P&L, balance
mhm,
sheet's still a balance
mhm.
sheet, and we all know what cash flow is. I
Right.
mean, these are all very, very basic.
Mhm,
It's a basic language. It's a
mhm,
basic taxonomy. And when I compare all these countries, it's basically the same.
mhm, mhm,
To me, it's literally all the same.
mhm,
It's at least 80% or 90% the
mhm.
same. The only thing difference is usually tax. But
Okay.
once you get into
Right. Mhm,
tax, it's basically the same. It's
mhm,
just a different rate and they're
mhm.
different rules.
Right.
And yeah, there are different accounting rules from country
Mhm,
to country. So what?
mhm,
That's what makes it a little bit
mhm.
interesting.
Right.
And statutory reporting. So all of that, same but different.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, so the language of accounting is very, very universal.
mhm,
When it gets to the language of people, um, it's pretty universal as well, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's far more nuanced, as you
Mm-hmm.
said. Stuff that works in the States, if you try and bring it to Vietnam, it ain't going to work,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's always the same country to country. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you find out what works and what doesn't work? Again, it's to me, I think it's going back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've felt that, over the decades, as businesses accelerate,
Mm-hmm.
and I could say that some businesses are more aggressive for growth than others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I found, and maybe it's something I come from my upbringing or my parents, and I'm a slightly older generation. I'm a baby boomer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the language of people has slightly changed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe it's on older folk. So go, if you're a younger folk,
Mm-hmm.
nothing against you, go speak to your
Mm-hmm.
grandparents or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Right.
And they're the ones, who sort of remind me, hey, where's the please? Where's the
Mm-hmm.
thank you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where are those niceties
Right.
which we used to
Mm-hmm.
have in the past?
Mm-hmm.
And I find out, those are fairly universal as you go around the world.
Mm.
However, as certain cultures are far more polite
Mm-hmm.
than other
Right.
cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for coming from the UK, coming from sort of a more Western, more
Mm-hmm.
open culture,
Mm-hmm.
we have to be very, very careful if you go
Mm-hmm.
into another culture which is less open.
Right.
Okay. We
Mm-hmm.
have to be careful of the language that
Mm-hmm.
we use.
Mm-hmm.
So I find, for example, if I go back to the UK and I'm just listening to people, as you do as you're walking down the street or in a
Mm-hmm.
cafe or wherever you are, there's a lot of use of the F word. It's a swear
And
word.
that's not going to happen in an Asian country.
It's not, you use that kind of word,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you might as well
Right.
slap me in the face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in one culture, it's sort
Mm-hmm.
of meaningless.
Right.
Okay, in another
Mm-hmm.
culture, oh, that
Mm-hmm.
really is a little bit
Mm-hmm.
out of
Right.
order.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are little things like that,
Mm-hmm.
but so there is a underlying language, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's general politeness
Mm-hmm.
that's important. So, and general politeness usually gets you places.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Being impolite
Mm-hmm.
usually can
Mm-hmm.
raise hackles up on another
Mm-hmm.
person, especially if they're from another country, a
Mm-hmm.
different culture. So I guess what I've learned, maybe the hard way, um, is yeah, you need to be careful what you
Mm-hmm.
say and your mannerisms
Mm-hmm.
and what you do.
Right.
Um, and this is um, really meaning that we have to become a little bit more self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's cross-culture.
Mm-hmm.
But these days, when the world is flat and people are working all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's face-to-face,
Mm-hmm.
hybrid, or virtual, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, we're increasingly working with people from other lands, other
Mm-hmm.
countries, other
Mm-hmm.
cultures. Um, and I guess what I've experienced over the decades,
Mm-hmm.
having worked with different people from, I've literally been to 30, 39 or 40 different countries,
Mm-hmm.
actually been there and worked with the
Mm-hmm.
people there for whatever the project
Mm-hmm.
was. Um, I can see the similarities and the dissimilarities.
Mm-hmm.
And it really forces us to maybe be more careful with what we
Mm-hmm.
say,
Right.
just in case what we say
Mm-hmm.
accidentally
Mm-hmm.
upsets someone.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't intentional. I'm not trying to upset someone
Right.
else,
Mm-hmm.
but because the culture is
Mm-hmm.
different, the way we said it, the other thing is just looking at people.
Mm-hmm.
Again in the West,
Right. Yeah.
you say,
How
I would look at a
direct are
person
we
when
being?
speaking to
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
It's being very direct. But
Mm-hmm.
if I do this in some cultures, Rick, why are you being so aggressive? You
Right.
know, I also have a bit of a hearing issue. You know, I wear hearing aids
Hmm.
because my hearing is going. I'm not getting any younger,
This getting
and
older
so
stuff.
yeah, stuff stops working so well, and so I have a tendency to speak loud.
Okay. Okay.
Because some people say,
And
like,
maybe lean in. Hmm.
why am I shouting?
Hmm.
Okay. And
Hmm.
again, in some cultures, why is this person speaking
Right.
so loud?
Hmm.
That's being a bit
Hmm.
disrespectful.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So an extent is I have to slow down
Hmm.
what I'm saying
Hmm.
because English is probably not people's first
Hmm.
language, and I don't know enough of the other language.
Hmm.
So I have to slow down. I have to try and reduce my volume,
Hmm.
okay, because volume can be seen as
Hmm.
aggression.
Right.
Um, I maybe need to modulate my tones a little bit
Hmm.
more.
Hmm.
Maybe not as, when I get excitable,
Hmm. Hmm.
it does get a bit
Right.
extremist
And that could be a
sometimes.
little scary to somebody. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you learn to tone down these things. So it's
Hmm.
being very, very observant
Hmm.
to these things.
Hmm. Right. And it can be simple things. I mean, one of the things that I had a student teach me, he was Asian, and we were talking about business cards. And
Hmm.
now, granted, a lot of people don't use business cards now. I don't even know if I have business cards, but you know, uh, like in America, in the U.S., when somebody hands us a business card, we might glance at it, but we frequently toss it on the table or cram it in a pocket. And this student taught us that business card in Asia is actually thought of as an extension of the person. And so
Hmm.
when we just treat the card badly, it's kind of like we're
Hmm.
treating them badly. And so they said, you
Hmm.
take the card and you hold it and you read it and you look at it and
Hmm.
then you place it somewhere carefully. Um, and and I thought, that's a good thing anyway, because we're looking at their name, their company, their title. And for those of us who are name challenged, that gives us another way to see somebody's name and maybe
Hmm.
remember it. And it is just a good business habit to get into. And so I love it when we learn from other cultures some things that are going to help us.
Yeah, what you mentioned there is especially Japanese.
Mhm.
Um, so if you get that wrong, it can be a serious insult.
Right. Hmm.
So you have to be a little bit
Hmm.
careful.
Hmm. Right. And as you said, all of this in a lot of ways is constantly changing, constantly evolving, especially as we are doing business worldwide. I've spoke with people in 3 different countries this week, you know, and so, but that is part of that changing and adapting, and as you said, becoming more self-aware. And because I get excited, I talk too fast. When I moved from Colorado to the South, I experienced that. I mean, I went 1,000 miles and experienced this. I had people who told, especially when they would listen to the podcast, they said, "We love what you're saying, but you need to slow down." And so I actually had a note on my computer for the first year or so that I was here that said, "Talk more slowly," just to remind me of that. And and it really was kind of one of those things where I thought, okay, I need to do that, for one thing, because it does make it easier to understand, all sorts of things. But it's, I think, as we, this self-awareness, it also, we are evolving, but more importantly, to go back to this change, we can choose to change. And I think that's the important thing is, what are we going to make the decisions to do to make ourselves, our lives, our businesses better?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's really is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everything that we do is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And whether we do something or don't do something is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Whether react
Mm-hmm.
or whether we don't react is a choice. And so it's really our choices that give us the end result. Um, and the important thing is that we really have to deliberately make a choice rather than do something and say, well, I didn't have a choice. We always have a choice.
Right. We can, yeah, sometimes the choice is that we're ignoring it or we're not doing it, but we made that choice.
Yeah, we made that choice. So it's, one of the things I talk about is, this old phrase, the buck stops with you. Because everything we do is a choice. Okay. And as you say, you can decide to do it or decide not to do it. It is an individual choice. It's no one forcing us to do it. We can say someone's forcing us to do it. Hey, I have to do this because I was given a deadline. And if I don't, if I don't do it, I'm going to get in trouble. It's still a choice.
Right. Yeah. You can do it or you can get in trouble. I mean, that's, that is your choice.
Yeah. It may be a lousy choice. The
Right.
consequences may not be great, but the fact is you have to own that choice. And by owning that choice is you're taking accountability, okay, as opposed to not taking accountability, which will be a problem.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because like when that person told me I needed to slow down, my first thought was that's stupid. All right. And then of course my rational brain kicked in and went, no. And I think that's one of the things, we need to, because we do all have an initial reaction to it. Is it a good initial reaction? Is it, do we need to stop and think, oh, maybe that really is, something that we need to work on, to change, to do whatever. But I think we need to acknowledge too that we have those initial reactions, and realize, okay, where did that come from?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, if we are sort of automatically reacting in a certain way, that's something really is sort of automatic. It's really built into us.
Right.
It could be us, our prehistoric survival brain speaking to try and protect ourselves. And it's, as you said, it's important that we sort of slow down and pause. So before blurting out what was on the tip of our tongue,
that's stupid, right?
That's stupid, is to force a pause, even if it's only, a handful of seconds, to give our more advanced brain, our thinking brain, time to kick in and saying,
Right.
is it as dumb or objectionable as I thought it was, or is this a different perspective and maybe I should stop and think about this a while?
Right. Right.
So again, that's linked to emotional intelligence, really. It's and the concept there is not just being self-aware, is emotional intelligence. Another way of looking at it is how you show up. So how you show up.
Right.
And when you meet a person for the first time, you may only have a limited interaction with them. So might have been at a business networking event, could have been in the lift, could be in the lobby. It really doesn't matter where it is.
I was thinking in the loo, but
okay.
Well, we were going with L's.
All right, that wouldn't have been on my list. But yeah, you only have a limited of time of interaction with them because maybe you were in the lift, okay, or in the loo or whatever
so
it was.
30-ish seconds, right?
And so you have that, I'm not talking about an elevator pitch, but there is an interaction. Okay. And the sort of the reflection piece here is that as a result of that interaction, since you've never met that person before, what is your opinion of them?
Right.
Okay. Because we all make that instant
Mm-hmm.
split
Mm-hmm.
decision what
Mm-hmm.
our opinion of them is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, if it was in the loo and they weren't very, very nice, or,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they didn't wash their
Mm-hmm.
hands, you're going to have an immediate
Mm-hmm. Right.
impression of them.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and of
And
course,
so,
yeah.
to me, emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
is how do you want to show up to other
Mm-hmm.
people?
Right.
That's it.
Right. And we've all heard the stories, and we've probably even had it happen to ourselves where we've made those snap judgments. We might have even done or said something.
Mm.
And then turns out that that's the guest speaker. That's the person you're sitting next to, all of those various things. And you're thinking, oh,
Mm.
darn,
Mm. Yeah.
and, and I mean, those thoughts are still going to go through our brain. And I don't think,
Mm.
we're saying not to have those thoughts. But
Mm.
I told somebody one time, oh, was that my out of head voice? Right. And just it goes back to what we were taught, hopefully, when we were little. Think before we act.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Before blurting out
Mm-hmm.
an answer or
Mm-hmm.
something is, think about what you're going to say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And again, to go back to the start of the conversation
Mm-hmm.
of different cultures and things. Again, for some, maybe in our more Western, more you could say more aggressive
Mm-hmm.
cultures, is we want those
Right.
instant
Mm-hmm.
answers. We
Mm-hmm.
we want people to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in not just other cultures, but different characters of
Mm-hmm.
people is
Mm-hmm.
no, they don't want to give an instant
Mm-hmm.
answer. They want to really think a little bit deeper
Mm-hmm.
about it and give you a better answer.
Mm-hmm. Right. And sometimes it is in how we say things. Many years ago I interviewed an author, and her name is Deborah Fine, and she wrote a book, The Fine Art of Small Talk. And I think that's one of the things that we need to always be thinking about. It's rather than jumping in and saying, so Rick, did you get that report done today? Rick, did you have a great weekend? How are you doing
Mm,
today? I see your skis there. When was the last time?
mm,
Those little things that help us build those kind of interpersonal relationships.
yeah.
Even if you're just calling the customer support person and, instead of just, well, this is what I need, this is what I want. How are you doing today? You having a good day? That
Mm.
kind of sets the tone for that conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, they are the the sort of the magic dust, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it,
Mm-hmm.
that helps build that trust and
Right.
rapport between people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's irrelevant if they're within the company that you work with
Mm-hmm.
or you're actually the person calling
Mm-hmm.
up the helpline because you want to tear someone's
Mm-hmm.
head off about
Right.
something.
Right. Yeah. Even like you said, even if you're not happy, take that breath and say,
Mm,
how you doing today? Because we all know if we get jumped on and somebody's cranky at us, we're
mm.
not as likely to be as helpful. Right.
Yeah,
So why
yeah.
not start the conversation? I remember I was listening to my mother one time. She was on the phone and she was talking to somebody, not in the United States. And now she was in her 90s when this conversation was taking place, but she was not happy, and this young man was not able to help her. Part of it was the
Mm,
language barrier, part of it was the matter she got, all sorts of things. And so at one point she got very testy with him, and she demanded to speak with somebody who actually, and I remember her saying this, who actually spoke English. I was
mm,
mortified. I snatched the phone away from her. I apologized to the young man. And he said, well, I hear that an awful lot. And I said, that doesn't make it right. And that certainly doesn't make this better. And when I apologized and brought the conversation back to a polite, respectful level, everybody took a breath. Of course, my mom stomped off because she got mad that I had done that. But I got the answers that she wanted just by taking that breath and saying, okay, because it was as the conversation difficulties were as much my mother's fault as they were the young man. And I think that's kind of one of the things we all need to remember is back to what you were saying, self-aware. Did I ask the question? Why was I rude? All those various things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, the help desks or customer support, whatever you want to call them, they are, I'm sure they're very, very difficult jobs to do
Right.
because you spend your day filled with a lot of very angry people.
Right. No matter what it is. It's interesting. I heard part of a story yesterday where they were talking about AI has now reached the capability of, I can be asking you questions and it will very quickly change the accent, the tone. And so I might be speaking with, say, someone in the Philippines, because, right, we all know that's where a lot of customer support is based. But through AI, it will make them sound like they're from the good old South, just like I am, right? And I don't know what I think about that. Because part of it might make it easier, but are we losing the flavor and the interest of having all of these different cultures and different nationalities?
Good question. Good question.
I mean, like one of my first questions
yes
to
and
you
no.
is, your
Yes and no.
accent, and
My accent, because of course I was born in the Philippines, don't you, Deb?
yes.
No, I'm not joking.
Right.
And I don't have much of an accent, do I?
No, not at all.
No, it's just a normal English accent.
Yes.
King's English.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I still keep saying queen, but that's a totally different.
Yeah, so do I.
I know, and
I keep having to remind myself.
Yeah, and well, and you do have a queen, but just, yeah.
No, but going back to, is something like AI and the voices that it can do to give you any accent that you want literally on the planet, is that going to eradicate other cultures and accents? No, I don't think so. I mean, the whole purpose, I guess, is in getting that right accent is, it's really being used to make it easier to make that support call, so you can speak to someone. Like that example you gave before of I think it was your mom.
Yes.
Is to remove that language barrier. Okay. Because in some cases it's just another barrier, it's another obstacle.
Right.
And when we're agitated, when we want an answer, when we want to move forward, and we can't, we're struggling to be understood by the other person. That's more fuel to the fire sometimes.
Right.
And so, if AI can help and you're speaking to someone with exactly the same accent, then that's already easier because you have something in common. So again, there's that immediate trust and rapport being built.
Right. And a big part of it though does come down to training, and things like that. My mother passed away almost exactly a year ago from when we are recording this, and I'm an only child, and so I was having to do the chores, right, of doing things, and she had one of the buttons of, I've fallen and I can't get up type of things, right? So I was calling to cancel her account. Now, the reason she chose the company she did, you kind of have guessed maybe a little bit about my mother just based on this, was it was a US based company and it guaranteed US based calls or customer support. And so I called to cancel the account and I got this delightful young man. English was not his first language, but that's okay. I mean, I didn't care. And so, I explained, I gave, this is my mother's name. This is her account number. This is who I am. And she has passed away. So I need to cancel the account. He said, "Oh dear, so sorry to hear that." And then he did not have the right training, because the next thing he tells me is, "I need to notify you that your mother has passed away." And I kind of laughed. And I said, "Okay, I called you, so I know that. um, but he got caught in this loop. He had not been properly trained. And I knew that. So I was not going to get mad at him. The fourth time he told me that my mother had passed away, I said, "Oh, thank you so much." And I hung up. It was like, and because I thought we're not getting anywhere. This is not going to do anything. And I thought I'll just call back some other time. Bless his heart, right? Because I do live in the South now. Bless his heart, he called back to tell me that my mother had passed away. And so again, I know it was like, oh dear. But I really did see it as comical. But I felt bad for him because he didn't know how to deal with my situation. So that was where his training was not appropriate. But it would have done nobody any good if I'd gotten mad at him. And so again, I just thanked him and I called back some other time. But I mean, it was, and so I think that's the thing that we all need to, whether we're dealing with people across the street or across the globe, what training are we providing to people?
Well, it's not just training. I mean, arguably, you could say, right, he hasn't been trained very well. That is one perspective, and that could be true. Another perspective is he's been given a script to follow, so
Yes, he was following that script.
Okay, it's just an inappropriate script,
Right.
and a lot of the times, it's a script that they have to follow. So a typical one is the bank. Okay, you
Right.
phone the bank, and they say, okay, this call's been recorded. Yeah. Now I need to ask you a whole bunch of security questions before we can really get into whatever it is you want to talk
Right.
about. And if you call frequently enough, you know exactly what questions they're going to ask. Okay, so they say, is it okay if I ask you the questions? They go, yes, and the answers are A, B, C, D.
Yes, my date of birth, my my
Yeah,
firstborn's name.
all of that. So it's a bit like that. There is a process that needs to be followed, and this is, I think, where it sometimes can go horribly wrong because there was an intent around that process. However, it is not applicable
Right.
all the times.
Right.
And where it goes off the rails, like the conversation that you were just having, it wasn't the appropriate
Right.
process for that conversation. So I'd lay the responsibility or even the accountability at the feet of that organization,
Right.
and not the individual,
Right.
who might just have to follow whatever that process is.
Right. Right. And it comes back to the fact that we keep thinking it's business as usual, and that's not true. So talk to us about business is unusual.
Okay, business as unusual, which is the title of my book.
Yes, he's being
One of
Vanna.
them. Okay. That was really a counter to the business as usual. During the book was born and was given a name during the COVID pandemic. And it was during that time that, the people that I knew, the people, my networks are all business leaders. They're saying, hey, when this is over and we get back to business as
Back
usual,
to normal.
back to normal, or back to the new normal, or whatever people want to call it. And it used to get me a little bit wound up because I said, there's no going back to normal. There is no new normal. I don't like any of these words. And we are definitely not getting back to business as usual. Everything now is unusual. And I was proven to be right because we thought the pandemic was over after a year, then after 2 years, and then after that, other stuff started happening.
Right.
We had the big, great resignation, and then it was the great reshuffle, and now we're into, hey, you've got to come back to the office, or don't come back to the office, or go somewhere in between, or something like that. It's all very, very confusing and all very, very unusual, and it goes on and on and on and on. 2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago, Chat GPT was unleashed on the world.
Right.
AI, what is that? We didn't even know what generative AI was. Most people on the street.
Right. We knew we used
that
it,
floored
but
us.
yeah.
And now it's like, you don't understand how to use it. It's an
Right.
expectation. Like, okay, we're supposed to magically know how to use it now, are we? And that's just one little technological
Mhm.
advancement, and it goes on and on and on.
Mhm.
So the speed of change that we have, whether it's technological
Mhm.
or something else,
Mhm.
is just rapidly
Mhm.
accelerating.
Mhm.
And the playbooks that we've had from the past aren't necessarily going to
Right.
fit,
Mhm.
which is why everything, as far as I'm concerned, will remain unusual.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we have to have a different mindset, a different
Right.
outlook to
Mhm.
be able to cope with this.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, all of my February programs focused on AI.
Hmm.
And of course, one of the things that I asked every single guest is people say it's going to cost me my job. And universally, they pretty much said it will, but only if you don't learn how to use it.
Mm,
And I kind of thought,
mm,
okay, and obviously it depends on the job, right?
mm.
But that it's so interesting that people are, oh my gosh, we can't do this, we can't do this. Well, I'm the same generation you are. I grew up using a typewriter.
Oh, typewriter. Okay.
Yes.
I
Now it was
I
electric.
grew up even before the typewriter.
Mhm,
I grew
mhm.
up using a thing called a slide ruler.
Yeah, and when I did not touch a computer till I was probably 18 years old.
Mm,
And of course, it was like, ooh, this is cool, right?
mm,
But
mm,
at the same point, if you had grown up with that, learning those non-tech tools, it was pretty scary to think, wait a minute, you mean I this can automatically correct my spelling, my grammar, all of these various things. And remember carbon paper? Oh my gosh, and whiteout. Those things that we just used every day, and then all of a sudden it was gone. And so you could say, no, I'm going to only use my typewriter and my whiteout, and the people with the computers are going to run you over. Obviously, they said the same thing many, many years ago when we had, the assembly line that was invented, all of those things. And so to me, this is just, as you said, change is the constant, right? And all these things, they're just going to keep coming. And we can either think, okay, this is interesting. You might not have to use it, but you at least need to acknowledge that it's there, or you can get run over.
Yeah, it's a bit like, I'm an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started accounting, we had things called paper and pencil
Mm-hmm.
and calculators.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even
You
have
didn't have an
electronic.
abacus, but
We didn't even have electronic calculators. I
right.
remember one of the
Mm-hmm.
first companies I worked with. We had a room full of comptometers,
Mm-hmm.
if people can even know what
Mm-hmm.
they are.
Right.
They're those
Well, we had
great
the
big
10 key
manual
machines,
machines.
right? Mm-hmm.
Those great big manual
Mm-hmm.
machines where they
Mm-hmm.
used to push the numbers in and pull a
Mm-hmm.
lever,
Mm-hmm.
and it would print
Yep.
out the number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a form of calculator.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went on to, we have a calculator.
Mm-hmm. And it
And
fit
then
in
it
your
went on to
hand. Mm-hmm.
computers. We were working on mainframes on that time. I had
Mm-hmm.
to use punch cards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like, we're both using a
Mm-hmm.
computer.
Mm-hmm.
They're just technological
Mm-hmm.
changes. And it they do eradicate certain parts of what we do,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't eradicate everything that we do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, who who wants to be doing, using carbon paper?
I know. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know who is upset of
Right.
not having
Or
to
the
do that
or the
anymore.
mimeograph machine, right? Remember those? And you
Yeah.
always knew who used them because they had blue hands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And for our
phones,
youngsters listening, Google it.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually have mobile phones
Mm-hmm.
now. We don't have
Mm-hmm.
those funny rotary things,
I
a
know.
fixed line. I mean, who's got
Mm-hmm.
a fixed line phone? I mean, they're going
Mm-hmm.
out of fashion, aren't
Mm-hmm.
they?
Right.
So, it's just the world doesn't come to an end, or your
Mm-hmm.
job doesn't come necessarily to
Mm-hmm.
an end, just because of that
Mm-hmm.
technological change.
Mm-hmm.
But it will come to an end if you stop changing.
Mm-hmm.
because if everyone is changing and you stop, it means that you're moving backwards by
Right.
virtue of everyone else moving forwards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the buck always stops with
Mm-hmm.
you. It's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn, again, let's take generative AI. It came out 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There, I still come across people today,
Mm-hmm.
okay, who have not fully embraced it,
Mm-hmm.
and they are waiting for somebody to show them how it
Right.
works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas others like are saying, how does this work?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Right.
just
Mm-hmm.
start using it.
Mm-hmm.
And well, they're the people they've
Mm-hmm.
moved way ahead
Mm-hmm.
because they worked out how to use it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she has given her chat GPT a name. She's named it. It was a female name. I don't remember what it was, but and then that's how she addresses it, and she has conversations with it. And I interviewed a young man who is 16 and lives in Pakistan. And he was telling me about the conversations that he has with Chat GPT every day. Now that's a little scary. I mean, I get that people, but I'm also thinking, oh my gosh, how cool is this? And so yeah, it is an interesting thing, but it is it change, right? It's going to change. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, sort of speaking to it every day as if it's a friend or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was funny
Strange.
because he also told
Yeah.
me, he said, I know I need to interact with people more. So he
Yeah.
recognized that he might have been isolating himself,
Mm,
things like that. And so and the conversation I had with this person yesterday who named their chat GPT, and I don't think I'll go that far, but I am polite to
mm,
it. I tell it thank you and
mm,
things like that.
mm,
But she said it is a little bit weird when you start having those conversations with it,
mm,
because we lose that. All of these tools still need the human part.
mm, mm,
And and like we know AI hallucinates. It will tell you
mm,
something that may or may not be true, so you have to now, I mean, a person can do that too,
mm,
right? but
mm,
um but she said, she was figuring, she needed to get back to talking to people also.
mm. No, it's at the end of the day, if if people are concerned about AI, there's one thing that it can't replace, and that is what you've just mentioned, there our humanness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Our little quirks are the mistakes that we all make,
Right. Mm-hmm.
the uniqueness about our characters,
Mm-hmm.
which is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more and more important now to have those human to
Mm-hmm.
human
Mm-hmm.
conversations
Mm-hmm.
because they are different.
Right.
They really are
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's that element that keeps us different,
Mm-hmm. Right.
that gives us as far as I'm concerned, the edge, because
Mm-hmm.
we all have
Mm-hmm.
access to AI. We
Mm-hmm.
all can use generative AI, Chat
Mm-hmm.
GPT, or whatever flavor that you like
Mm-hmm.
using. Okay. So if everybody has exactly the same tool and
Mm-hmm.
could use it in any which
Mm-hmm.
way or even exactly the
Mm-hmm.
same way, where's our
Mm-hmm.
differentiator?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Right.
who we are
Mm-hmm.
and what we can add on
Mm-hmm.
top of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's like we're
uh,
the special sauce, we're the spices,
yeah,
we're whatever
yeah,
it is. Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we have our opinions based
Mm-hmm.
on our life
Mm-hmm.
experiences. Um, Generative AI has got everybody's experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what experience is that? Is it
Right.
very diluted and
Mm-hmm.
average?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we weren't here to talk about AI. You spent all of the last month talking about
I know.
that.
Yeah, it was very interesting. But one of the things that we mentioned, and people can listen, they know you're British, and
Mhm.
Britain, there's a lot of castles, right? In England.
Mhm.
And so you have the castle as a metaphor for life. And so tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about that.
Well, I like castles.
They're cool. My descendant or my heritage is Scottish, right? We got a lot of castles.
Okay. So I love castles,
Hmm.
and if everyone listening, just think of now, just imagine a castle.
Hmm.
Just imagine it in your mind.
Hmm.
It's got towers, it's got turrets, it's got walls, it's made of stone,
Hmm.
but that's sort of common across all of them. But I could guarantee that each one of our views of a castle is going to be different. You know, there are certain elements that we like. So if I talk about being an architect of change, is you're an architect of your own castle.
Hmm.
Okay, and you can build it in any shape or form or size that you
Hmm.
want, and that's why I've used that metaphor as a
Hmm.
metaphor for life, because in the book I've talked about different aspects of your life,
Hmm.
which are basically different buildings in the castle.
Hmm.
And as we are shaping our lives, is as if we're laying one brick at a time every
Hmm.
single day, and it's making that deliberate choice. Where are we going to lay that brick?
Hmm.
Are we going to put it on that building or some other building? Because that's a different facet of our
Hmm.
lives. Okay. And so therefore we're laying it within an intention to build up that aspect of us
Hmm.
or to strengthen that other aspect of us.
Hmm.
They're very deliberate choices.
Hmm.
Okay, that's why I say you're being an architect. Okay, an architect of change because
Hmm.
we're actually changing our castle.
Hmm. Right. It's interesting. I saw just yesterday on Facebook a meme, and I spend a lot of time on Facebook. I don't do many of the other social sites because I would be watching cat videos all day. Um, and but it was showing, and it was a castle turret, right? And it was said, this is your goal. But then the next part of the meme showed the first three or four bricks, and it said, this is how you build it. And I
Mm.
love that concept because it really is, our goal is not done. We have to start brick by brick.
Yeah, yeah. And the a castle is sort of infinite. You can infinitely build it
Mm-hmm.
and grow it.
Mm-hmm.
You can make your towers higher and
Right.
higher. You can make your walls higher and higher.
Mm-hmm. You can
You
knock down
can
things and start
you can
over.
knock down
Mm-hmm.
things and do it again because you
Mm-hmm.
don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
You can just make it bigger, expand
Mm-hmm.
your realm, as it
Mm-hmm.
were.
Mm-hmm.
So each of the buildings has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
One of the buildings I had is the stables,
Mm-hmm.
because what's the point of the stables? Well, you get on your horse, you leave the castle,
Mm-hmm.
and you expand your domain. You go
Mm-hmm.
in search of something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in the book, I'm talking about, yeah, we're going in search of satisfaction.
Mm.
Okay. And learning new
Mm-hmm.
experiences,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really in search of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So, what are some of the other buildings?
Well, in a castle, um, the the innermost part of the castle, sort of the inner keep,
Mm-hmm.
in my castle or my metaphor, there are four towers.
Mm.
We have the Tower of the Mind,
Mm-hmm.
which is all about the mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's some emotional intelligence in there because it's how we show up,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also embracing a concept of
Mm-hmm.
Kaizen, which is a Japanese term of
Mm-hmm.
constant improvement,
Mm-hmm.
which I reframe as learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all about expanding your mind, expanding your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Tower of Purpose, which is all about your life purpose, your
Mm.
goals, your legacy,
Mm-hmm.
your core values.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have the Tower of Life Force,
Mm.
and that's all about your herbs, your health.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and we have another fourth tower, which is the Tower of Self, So that's your self-confidence, your
Okay.
self-efficacy, your
Okay.
self-worth, and your
Mm-hmm.
self-motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all the internal ones, and their
Mm-hmm.
internal inner keep, they're the strongest, they
Mm-hmm.
work together,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really inside of you. So that's
Right.
very, very much sort of inner work.
Mm-hmm. And your
And the
castle will collapse if you don't have those.
Yeah, you need those. You
Mm-hmm.
need those. So, all right, one of the most important ones to me is still the Tower of Purpose, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole point. That's your
Right.
why.
Mm-hmm.
That's is what you're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it helps ground you as well with your
Mm-hmm.
core values. And it's really important to
Mm-hmm.
align your core values with your goals and your
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I find if those are out of alignment, people are going to feel a little bit off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, they might not know why something is off, but
Mm-hmm.
it's usually if they are
Mm-hmm.
misaligned.
Mm-hmm.
And then there, outside that inner keep, there are some other buildings. I mentioned the stables. The other one is the Great Hall, which is all about community.
Right.
So
Where are you meeting?
community,
Where are you gathering? Mm-hmm.
yeah, you gather everyone there. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're the king or queen of your castle in the past, you would gather people
Mm-hmm.
there, your visitors, the people who live around you,
Mm-hmm.
and you invite them, and that's where they see you, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
you entertain them. So that's all about connection.
Mm-hmm.
That's all about relationships, but it's also how they see you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do they see you as that great leader of that
Mm-hmm.
castle or not?
Mm-hmm.
And another building is the treasury, which
Mm-hmm.
is all about wealth,
Right.
which can be a financial wealth, but it can
Mm-hmm.
be a non-financial
Mm-hmm.
wealth as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another final building which is underneath the keep, which is the dungeon.
Uh-oh.
Okay. And the dungeon is all about coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's about coaching because we all know that growth um, begins beyond your comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you need to be
Mm-hmm.
stretched out of your comfort
Mm-hmm.
zone in the dungeon. And that's when you start growing.
I love
So,
it. I
a
love it.
variety of
Mm-hmm.
buildings. So to me, is what we're architecting is this life. These are
Mm-hmm.
all the elements that we need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And just as if we were building a
Mm-hmm.
castle, one brick at a
Mm-hmm.
time, where do you want to lay that
Mm-hmm.
brick? Where do you want to put your
Mm-hmm.
focus?
I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Rick, this has been so much fun, and we've only got a couple minutes left. We didn't even cover half of what I wanted to discuss, and so that just means that we need to have you on again.
Ooh.
But tell us, I know, hopefully you thought this was a great conversation and you want to come back. But
Mm.
tell us a little bit more about how people find you and what are the services that you provide.
Okay, there are two ways you can find me. You can go to my website, um, or I would ask you to do something a little bit unusual, and
Okay.
that's to go to Google first
Ah.
and just Google my name
Mm-hmm.
and see what happens.
Ah.
Okay?
I love
See
it. I'm
what
going to have
happens.
to do
See,
that. Mm-hmm.
see if I appear or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for all of you people who are SEO experts, you're going to go, wow, how
Mm-hmm.
did he do that?
Mm-hmm.
How come he is on number one ranking on everything?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Literally. And
I
that's because
love
I'm
it.
the only person on the planet with my name.
There's only 3 Deb Creers the last time I checked, and so yeah, and so I get that, but
Um,
yeah, I love it. And then of course you are the author of Business as Unusual: How to Thrive in the New Renaissance. And your company is TRG International, so folks can find information
mm.
there. I mentioned we'll have you on again, but until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah. So as we're closing now, Deb, I want to leave everybody just with a single thought. I want everybody to remember that we're not just participants in this ever-changing world, but we are architects shaping the course of our lives, our careers, and the world around us. And I encourage everybody listening to please embrace the change and define it rather than just adapt to it. Be that catalyst in our business as unusual world. Remember, the transformation starts with you. And I'm really eager to hear about your journeys. So Deb, I'd really like to express my gratitude to you for having me on your wonderful podcast today. It's been a fascinating conversation and time has just flown by.
And we
And I
went
hope
multiple directions.
And I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. And to all our listeners, I really appreciate your time and attention. And more importantly, I look forward to hearing from some of you, learning from your experiences, and perhaps having that opportunity to share some more in-depth future discussions. Thank you again, Deb, and to all our listeners.
Oh my gosh, this really has been absolutely delightful. And I can't wait to do it again. So we will continue this discussion. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having so much fun speaking with Rick Yvanovich. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.